All right, we're going to move into our third presentation for this session. And I'd like to introduce the Honorable Gary Graber. We're going to stick into the CDL world here, and he's going to talk to us about the importance of judicial outreach. Justice Graber has served as the town justice for the town of Darien, New York since 1980. He is very active in the development and training of topics related to commercial driver licenses and commercial motor vehicles, including the development of sentencing charts, which assist the New York courts in properly disposing cases that involve CMV equipment violations. Gary, if you're online, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm jealous. I really wanted to get out there at your invitation, but the National Judicial College at this time is running a 3-day CDL seminar with the focus on reducing masking, and I've been with them for quite a few years, obviously, and so to get out here and reach other folks. And someday, Dave, I'd like to have a conversation with you based on what I just heard, and I hope that we can do that someday. I have some thoughts and some concerns maybe, but that's for another day. So hopefully you'll reach out or we can talk. When I was originally asked to do this, my first thought was just to talk about the importance of the judicial outreach in this world that we're talking about. Masking and things of that nature. A lot of what I focus on is that. In the New York side, we started out with the equipment violations and things like that we're having the courts were having trouble understanding, and then kind of evolved into this. And I really enjoy talking about this. And one of the things I've tried to do is to try to simplify it into a few main ingredients for the courts to understand. So some of the things that have been brought up with regard to what the courts are looking to do or trying to do, we're reaching out, and it seems like we're making a little headway, and then all of a sudden we lose a bunch of judges or clerks, and we seem like we're starting over again. So I thought the best way for me to do this is just to say why should you care? And this is what I start out many of the presentations, but really the question is why should we all care? And I think that when we listen to the folks today and everybody's efforts here, it's clear that we do. Nobody can do it alone, and for many years we kind of sat a little bit isolated out there, and I'm hopefully we're again getting ahead of that. Like with everything else, I've seen a few of these today, but I talk about the stakeholders. One of the things I think is so important that we let everybody know that by the time it gets to the point where the courts are, there's a lot of steps that can be done and can be done properly before they get to us. So I want the judges to understand that drivers have responsibilities, regulations, and if somebody stands before them and says, "Judge, I didn't understand that, I didn't know," those types of things, that's really kind of too bad, so sad, and to let those things are out there, because those are the things we may typically hear. The companies can be the same way. Law enforcement, you touched there, Dave just touched on a little bit, and the prosecutors either they're too busy sometimes. And again, this is by no way any kind of finger pointing. This is a way to educate our judges as to who has to do what, and so that by the time they get to them, they have the knowledge they may need to be able to make the proper decisions. I'm shocked from what I see, because I work in the private side of this as well. My elected position is part-time, but in talking to law enforcement, I'm very curious sometimes to hear some of the thoughts where maybe the road deputy that doesn't do this makes decisions not to write them because they're taking food off their table, those types of things. And and it kind of makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up, because we want them to let us do our job. You see these things, do what you have to do, but let us do our job. It's the only way we're going to keep these statistics where they should be, and that may be a little bit gray. So, but that's the reason I do this, and I go through the whole litany of what everybody should be trying to do to work together. And yeah, I'm happy to say, like in New York, in the last couple of months, we've actually reached out to like 325 judges and clerks just on the masking issue alone. So the word's getting out there, but there's still some skewed areas that hopefully we can talk further on, and I'm always happy to do that. I'm going to give you three just quick examples. I got this call. This call was from a judge. It actually came from our Town and Village Resource Center in New York because they had talked to this judge. He took the class in Nevada, and he recognized that a possible masking situation, but he called them, which is what he should have done. And there was some concern as to what should happen. In a nutshell, what happened here was it was a DWI, aggravated DWI by a CDL holder. Doesn't matter whether he's in the vehicle or not because, the situation was really the same. But the funny part of it was with this was that the prosecutor in this case reduced it to a reckless or offered a reckless reduction. And the reason he did was because he had a proof issue, which is perfectly fine. The judge asked the questions. The prosecutor said he didn't have a real good case. There was an issue of who was operating. And what did the prosecutor do? Reduce to a reckless, which is actually a serious traffic violation. So I don't know if he knew he was doing that or not, but the judge still wasn't sure. I happened to teach the class, the masking class that the judge was in several years ago, so he gave me a call and he did the right thing. One way or the other, they did the right thing, and this person, even without the proof of the DWI, ended up with a serious traffic violation conviction. So there was something good that came out of this. Other things that we talk about too are the importance of the information on the citations. And this happened to be an issue in Syracuse a couple of years ago. And I try to show them some of the things they should be aware of in the citations and how important that they are to look at them. Basically, one of the things I look at all the time is the class. That's just something I do. I try to ask them to do that as well, especially if there's a potential plea offer in front of you. And I'll look to see if it was a speed, was it one of the serious traffic violations under Table 2. We give them 38351 bench cards. We use those cards and refer to them. Tomorrow I'm doing the third part of a series for the college where we're just going to work on nothing but the cards. I've actually done Jeopardy games with them already so that we get them to look at those, especially the Table 2 ones, the top 5 in Table 2, because they're so important, because those are the violations they're going to see the most in traffic court. And we want them to pay attention to that. So in this situation, this was a multi violation, especially in the inspection report, that basically this truck had no brakes. And if you looked at the inspection reports, the red truck was the one that there were virtually no brakes in his truck whatsoever. And the driver admitted to it. He couldn't figure out why he couldn't stop. So what's it tell you? Driver wasn't paying attention to his equipment. Anyhow, a new law enforcement officer comes out, writes a Class C on the license class. I'm not the brightest bulb in the world, but I knew, but from the pictures, that it wasn't that. But let's wait and see what happens. So potential. One of the violations, the following too close, which was mentioned as a serious traffic violation. And I want them to focus on that. The next one, he continues to do the same thing. Class C, left of the to pass on the right. Was it a potential improper lane change? Well, possibly. Yes or no, doesn't matter. But I'm going to treat it for that way for now. So we get them to look at that. He was passing on. Attempted to pass on the right. So anyhow, just that gives it number 2. Now this officer changes the third ticket to a Class A license class, never changes the first 2. And what do we got? Reckless driving. So we have three potential ones here. There was actually another one that was a speed, but it was the speed not reasonable, which wouldn't have qualified under the disqualifications. So with that, you can see what we're trying to do here to help them to understand the basics of what they need to look at and not overlook them. I had a judge from a southern state one day. It doesn't matter north or south, but I won't say the state. But he told me he never handled a CDL case, and I asked him if he had traffic court, and he said he did. But what he didn't, I asked him. I said, "Do you look at the license classes at all?" No, no. I said, "Well, Judge, you may have had CDLs go through your court, and you may not have ever known that. And if you have a very busy traffic court, the potential is there. And if your prosecutor doesn't catch it or your clerk doesn't catch it, it's going to get by you." So this is why I think that these are the ingredients that are so important and so simple for them to be able to do. And a beauty part of this was one of the clerks who have been very supportive to my training up in New York for years, spotted this and wasn't sure because they also made it an out of service violation, which is just not something that happens. It doesn't, not for the reasons that this was on here. So, so there's a couple of examples. I know this was just mentioned that Mr. Madsen just talked about it, but here's an actual plea affidavit. Now, if I'm a CDL holder, which I am, and I get this in the mail after I got stopped for an unsafe passing, and they offer me a plea offer to what was it? Jaywalking in this situation. It was mailed to me, never went to court. It was mailed to me, and I see this, and it's actually almost half of the amount less with the fine and surcharge, what it could have been, no points. What am I going to say as a CDL holder? I'm going to say, yay, give it to me, give it to me. Yeah, and I just walked out of that and not had any problems with it, nothing on my record, and for almost, well, not a half, but less than half the, well, I'm sorry, a little bit more than half of what it would have cost me if I may have been convicted of the charges, because with that, there would have been a $93 surcharge on top of what's here. So I'm being, this isn't a tough decision for anybody that holds that license. So I wanted you folks to see this, because when I saw this, and this actually happened to a driver that was working for me at the time. I was a terminal manager till my near retirement in a few months, but so I'm doing that. Who had got this violation, brought the ticket in to show me he got it. He doesn't work for me anymore because, fortunately they got him on a drug scan, and he's no longer with us. But so he had more issues than that. So not only did he have this issue, didn't understand why why this has all happened to him, because he didn't think that he did anything wrong with the unsafe passing, and clearly didn't know the regulations. And the other thing I tell the judges as well is, if they're telling you that and they didn't understand or they didn't see the regulations, they don't know the regulations, you have a problem already. Because if they tell you that, then you better have your ears perk up and your antennas go up, because those are the things that we need to be aware of. But here is a clear example of a mass that of types of things that we don't want to see. So I don't want to take up any more of the time that I was allotted here, and that's kind of tough for me sometimes. But I made it into a simple equation. We just focus on I should say the major things that we focus on are that the definition of conviction and what that means, and what all the things, the ingredients in that definition is. And then, you can't have the disqualification without the conviction. So you got to have the conviction. You have to pay attention to the aggregate amounts of those things within the time frame. So those serious traffic violations within 3 years, it's the second, the third, and what they amount to. Put the disqualification and focus on the citations. Pay attention to what they say. And if you've got issues where the officers aren't getting the information in there for you, well, then have your administrators reach out to the other groups and say, look at our courts are missing these things and we don't want that to happen. What do we want? We want to make sure at the end of this chain, or almost at the end of this chain, before before it it hits the DMV, that we're doing our part, getting them in and out timely, and ensuring the public's trust in what we do. So with that, I think that's all I'm gonna have as far as what we're doing here, and I think I stayed within my time. So
You did good.
so I hope this makes sense, and I would really appreciate any comments about the things that we're trying to do. And like I said, there's a 3-day session going on at the college now who does a great job with this.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. What sort of, if you or someone else is available to the states to come out and kind of help them to work through these processes?
Oh, sure, sure. All they have to do is primary. Their grant is for the judicial or the in the judicial realm for that training. But I've been out to many states and happily so to do that. It's always a unique experience to do it one-on-one, but um, uh, hearing some of the things that happen, and it's funny with law enforcement too. I mean, I've talked to uh, s- you know law enforcement in my state, where the supervisors say, what's this masking thing and what's 38351, because they get so focused on the equipment side of it, they don't always see that part of it. And so we get the bench cards out and we get them out so that we can get them to the courts when they have questions. So it's it's just a cycle that we have to continue to uh, support from our part, because we have ethical responsibilities as far as how we can train and what we can do. But certainly, we've seen things with things like drug court and things like that, where ways that of old have changed a little bit, where we can kind of work together and in these situations to meet the common goal, which is just reducing those crashes. So.
I was just about to ask you why would you say outreach to the judicial is so important?
When I use the circle, I like to explain is that we're at kind of at the end of this. We still got to make sure we get those things in timely, but I think it's important because if you're in this and you're doing this for any amount of time, and for me it's 42 years, and what I've seen you're able to see some of the mistakes, or some of the things that don't happen, that missing information on that citation. Um, what's the best way sometimes to educate your prosecutor is when you say no to a plea. Because a prosecutor that I personally had for 25 years that wanted to reduce a speed over 15 to a parking violation, and I said no, and well, that started a conversation, and he understood that after that. That didn't mean he didn't try it with my co-judge. Tried the same thing, but my co-judge took the masking class as well. But does it happen? It happens, and it happens quite a bit, because some of the times these things are more for revenue than they are for the safety aspect of it, and it's only because folks don't realize it. So once we educate them, they seem to embrace it, and but there's times they don't either, and I'm aware of that as well. So
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Any questions for Justice Graber? Anyone have any comments, feedback for him?
wow.
Good information. Thank
Well, I
you.
hope Dave's on. Dave, please call me. It's a good
I'll
thing
put
that
you
came
guys
out
in
of
touch with
today.
each other.
Yeah,
Yep.
please.
I sent you my phone number.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up, but I hope you don't mind the phone call. So
No problem. No, I think your work here is enlightening. I really think, I mean, it's one looking at it from a data perspective. It's the other one looking at it at the ground perspective, and you got to make the two merge to get
Right.
the picture. And I
Right.
appreciate the work that you're doing here. I've
Well,
noticed a lot of similar things that you brought up.
I was
Thank you.
thinking it. I was thinking it as I listened to you, and I got Chris Turner after me. I usually like to have Chris go before me. That way I can copy everything he said. So that was a joke, Chris. I hope you're laughing. So,
Oh, I'm sure. That was a great
okay.
segue.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. And again, anytime, and just to get back just quickly, your state judicial educators can reach out to the college and ask for this training at any time. And again, you can get back to me or just reach out to the college. They'll put you up with the right folks. Okay.
Great. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you.